Do you ever wonder if God is at work? Do you ever wonder if God's hearing your prayers? Do you ever wonder if you've prayed for something for a long time and haven't seen anything, if God's actually paying attention? I want to tell you a story about Puckatawagan. I want to tell you a story about how God is faithful and how God, in the most miraculous ways, shows up in the most timely manner. We were taking a group of women up to Puckatawagan. It was a mission trip that had been planned for 6 months from a church in Kitchener, the Koinonia Church. And the ladies' ministry had decided to bless the ladies in Puckatawagan. And so off they went. I wasn't planning on going on that trip, but they managed to talk me into it the day before. And so the 9 of us, 12 of us with some of our missionaries and kids, were off to Puckatawagan. On the way, we were supposed to take a plane from the PA, but it turned out that the plane had iced up. And so we were left with the decision to take the train or try to take a plane the next day. We prayed about it and we felt strongly that God wanted us to take the train. And so the next morning we got up and boarded that train. As we were getting on, we noticed that 3 pine boxes were coming onto the train, and we talked to a few of the locals and found out that there had been 3 deaths in the community and that the bodies were coming home. As we got onto the train, it was packed and there was not a seat left. As a matter of fact, there were people riding in between the cars that didn't have seats. It was quite a sight to see. The train up to Puckatawagan is not the same as a VIA train that you would take to BC. It's rougher, the seats are broken, and it's very slow. And so off we went. And the night before, the ladies had decided that they would like to bless everyone on the train with a piece of chicken. So we had bought all of the KFC in the PA. And so with our chicken and with our stuff, off we went to Puckatawagan. Immediately we noticed that there was a lot of kids on the train, and the ladies all loved kids. And so right away we began to do kids stuff and play songs on a guitar, and the kids were just gravitating towards us. They were singing the songs with us and they were joking around with us, and we began to get to know these children on the train. As we got to know them, we realized that many of them were actually on their way to Puckatawagan for the funerals. One young lady said, "That's my grandma." Another one said, "That's my uncle." A few of them said, "That's my dad." And so we began the ministry that God had called us to in the most unassuming way. It seemed to be by accident, but God was at work. When the chicken was gone and it had been given away, the ladies realized that they were in a different world and that there was hungry people on the train, and that there was kids looking for affection and reassurance of life and of their future. We arrived in Puckatawagan and we were quickly greeted by the people of Puckatawagan, and it was as if they didn't know we were coming. We had phoned ahead a couple days prior to getting there, but many people didn't know we were coming, and yet we were welcomed and greeted and really encouraged to be there. As a group, we decided we should support those families and that we should go to the funerals the next day. There was going to be 3 of them, one at 10, one at 1, and one at 3. If you've never been to a funeral up north, it's not the same as in Winnipeg where the backhoe comes and digs the grave. It's actually dug by hand, and you need to build a big fire and let it burn for several hours to soften the ground, and then it's dug up by hand, and then you build another fire, and so on and so on. And sometimes it takes up to 3 days to dig these burial plots. And so we knew that there'd been a lot of work gone into these funerals, and we really wanted to let the community know that Canadians love them, and that the people from Kitchener love them, and the people from Winnipeg love them. We arrived at the church and I dropped several of the ladies off and went back to get the next group of ladies. And when I arrived with the second batch of people, the lady in the Catholic church was quickly walking towards me, and I noticed that everybody else that we had dropped off was already at the front, and it looked like they were practicing. The lady from the Catholic church, who hadn't always gotten along with the evangelical church people of Puckatawagan, came towards me and said, "Why are you here?" I said, well, we've been planning this trip for 6 months, and we just wanted to come and listen to the elders of Puckatawagan and bless the ladies of Puckatawagan with gifts and with some other things that we'd brought. And she said, all of the clergy from Puckatawagan is gone, and we know that you're a pastor, and these ladies can sing. Would you be the choir? And would you deliver the message? Would you deliver the homily? This funeral started at 10 and we were there at around 10:05. And so we all said yes. And we saw the Spirit of God move in such a way that the hearts of the people of Puckatawagan were touched. When we finished the service, we sang about the love of God, and we talked about how God meets us in these places where we are in deep sorrow, but he always shows up when we look for him there. And the chief came to me and one of our council members and said, why are you here? I again explained that we had planned this trip 6 months previously. And they said, 6 months previously, we didn't know you were coming. She looked me square in the eyes and said, we thought God had forgotten about us. God sent you. She then shared several other ideas and several other thoughts with me, and turned around and looked and saw that the ladies were all sitting and ministering to the young people that they'd met on the train before. They were bringing comfort and compassion to those that had lost a loved one. She looked at me and said, I need to sit down. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I saw in her eyes reconciliation. I saw in her eyes that she saw that these ladies that came from far away, these white ladies, loved the young ones of Puckatawagan. And I could see the seeds of reconciliation grow. Later on, we went to put the deceased in the ground, and it was a battle. It took 5 or 6 times to actually get the large pine box in the ground. And right then, an eagle flew over, and it lapped around the place twice. And it left. And the people of Puckatawagan let out such a whoop, I can't even describe to you what it sounded like. And what I saw that day is the Catholic Church working with evangelical missionaries, supported by the council of the tribe, all wrapped in a bundle of culture. And it all came together and it brought comfort to the people. I see that as a beautiful picture of who our God is and how he can work if we allow ourselves to be obedient to what he's asked us to do. So I tell you this story to encourage you that God's at work and that God hears your prayers. Later on that week, prayer groups broke out in Puckatawagan, and people were praying for us and praying for each other and praying for their community. They believed that God was hearing them again and that God was working. And so I want to encourage you, and wherever you're at and whatever you're going through, that God is hearing your prayers and that he is listening, and that the story of Puckatawagan is for you. Don't give up. God's with you.